Hey everybody, welcome back. To those of you new to the channel, I want to extend a welcome to you. To those of you that are my returning subscribers, it's good to see you all again. I can't say how much I appreciate every last one of you, all the comments and insight that you give me. I try to read through as much of it as possible, and it does give me a lot of perspective on how everybody feels and just what's going on out there, you know? And for many of you, I think you've noticed the holidays feel different. They just feel different today than they ever used to when we were younger. Those of us that are early millennials or Gen Xers or boomers, we're just aware, very profoundly so. The holidays are just very, very different. And I do have some opinions on that I want to share and see what you guys relate to, what you all feel is the truth in all of this. And the first thing that I would say is, I feel like our society has given a strong push towards utter self-centeredness. Self being the center of everything, the one thing that you worship, the one thing that is the only thing that matters. No higher power, no God. People around you don't matter unless you can force them into some form of conformity to whatever your current version of progressivism is. But basically, it is so centered on that, and the division that has been created, especially in the Western world, especially here in America, you feel it everywhere. You feel it when it comes to the holidays. You feel it if you are someone that still gets together with family, and you're able to make that tradition and that regular holiday get-together still happen. You feel that. You feel that every time. There is a divide between people that basically are trying to have a more, just grounded, realistic sense where they don't want to be divided against people because we feel like that's a form of manipulation. We feel like the left and right divide is a form of manipulation, and we don't want to play into all of that. Like the average person you meet out there on the street or somebody that you might encounter in the workplace or wherever, you don't want to have a divide between you and them, and you don't want there to be a perceived permanent schism there when you have nothing personally against that individual. I think most Americans, myself included, and probably most of the people watching my type of content, we have the stance of, yes, you absolutely should live in a free country where you have the freedom to choose anything that you want to do. It does not mean conformity to all thought. It doesn't mean the thought police. It means that if you have a differing opinion on something, that should always be welcomed. And even if it's something extreme that you want to do that, say, I wouldn't per se agree with, you should have the freedom to do that. But that really should be all that's afforded. Every thought being lined up to where everybody has to agree exactly the same on everything, or they're shut out of family, shut out of society. Absolutely not. But from that stance, from that place, the division that's being fostered and encouraged and inflamed amongst all of us has created something that prevents us from even being able to enjoy and appreciate. I mean, I'll be honest, I look around when I wake up on, any given morning in December, and you take a look around, people are just, it feels like about half the people just hate the idea of the holidays. They hate the idea of something involving Christmas at all. And this isn't about preaching or promoting Christmas per se. I mean, we could go into the history of where it came from and how it was, converted from a pagan holiday to a Christian holiday or whatever. We could go into all of that, but let's stick to present day and how things are affected. Because there was a connection between you and people that you didn't necessarily completely agree with, but you learned to get along with viewpoints that weren't exactly as your own, and maybe even appreciate their viewpoint and they appreciate yours, and you try to listen and talk to each other. And there was a connection that is now being lost in this digital age. Something that is very, very obviously prevalent and happening now. And I feel like many of you notice this as you wake up and maybe you have nobody even to go to. Or you have alienation between you and family members, or you and your own children, like I do. And it's not something that you want to be there. It's not something that you've just left alone and maybe tried not to, didn't try to fix. You've tried to, but it's something that's there that you can't completely get around. You want to fix it, but it's almost like there is a level of indoctrination of, if you've ever disagreed or used common sense about anything, you'll never be welcomed by certain groups because they will permanently mark you. If you've had children that have been this way, they don't even stop to think, wait a minute, do I really need to not get along with these people? Do I really need to be at odds? Do I really need to have division? And am I being manipulated? Are you stopping and thinking all these things through? Because this is all directly affecting just a holiday like Christmas from our past that we all used to love, probably for the most part, and enjoy, and we have memories connected to it. And now it's just a completely different animal. Some of us probably avoid it. I admit that on certain years, especially recent years, there's been a level of hesitation and even trepidation concerning Christmas where I almost don't even want to think about who's not going to be there, what connections aren't there that I tried to fix but I couldn't. And you're just aware of the divide that's been created that feels very artificial. And you don't want it to affect the rest of your life, but inevitably it's spilling over. And then you end up at a holiday like Christmas Day, and you're realizing it has spilled over and there's no way around it. I don't want it to affect it, but now it's in my face and I can't do anything but directly face the reality of it, and I have no choice. In some ways that can be a good thing, because having no choice but to face it is something that we all really have to do. I mean, you can live in a fantasy world and in denial of everything that's going on in your life and what's going on around you and everything that's affecting you, or you can face it and try to make sense of what you can make sense of it and try to find a way to move forward and cope the best way you can, even if it's just making adjustments in your own personal life when you feel like politically nothing can change. And even some other observations, I do believe that commercialism has had a huge amount to do with this too. I mean, I'm sure many of you have noticed over the years. We get to Halloween, and Halloween hasn't even come and gone, and Christmas decorations are going up in the stores. They're selling all the Christmas stuff. And then sometimes even a week or two before Christmas, they're already taking stuff down, and you see things going up for springtime, Valentine's Day, maybe even potentially some Easter decorations or other things getting dragged out. And I'm like, Christmas is a week away. Why are you doing this? But it gives you this emotional feeling of it all being just rushed. It used to be that a lot of people would put up their Christmas tree or decorations post-Thanksgiving. At some point after that, they would start slowly putting up their decorations. They would be up all throughout December, usually taken down during the week after Christmas or sometime early January. And people relaxed into it and enjoyed it. And there's this rushed feeling about it to where it just feels like it's already gone before Christmas Day even hits. Like every holiday is already pretty much gone before the day actually hits, because the commercialism of it is basically forcing it to move forward on a much more accelerated schedule. And all of this is, of course, driven by money. Or I should say, really the love of money, the root of all evil, the love of money, driving every last bit of this. I realize that there's not much that any of us can do to, per se, change that unless everybody in mass starts not participating, which would effectively change the industry, because money is what's going to change their minds ultimately. But I'm curious as to your thoughts and observations. Have we shifted towards a more self-centered, self-worshipping society, not only to the detriment of our own selves, because in the end, that leads to emptiness, utter and complete emptiness. You are not the center of everything. I am not the center of everything. The people around us matter. Differing points of view matter. And a higher power matters. And I believe that we've just lost sight of the meaning of just everything and the reality that all the materialism and all of the greed and everything that goes on around us, it isn't anything that's going to make us whole. It isn't anything that's going to make us happy. And much of the struggle and problems that we have in our own families that prevent the holidays from happening in a way that is meaningful or good or even builds us up anymore is a manufactured problem. I've talked about this before. If you go back and you research enough, I would say definitely around the year 2012, and I've seen some research done on this, and there's a lot of evidence to back it up. If you're not sure, go look up. All of this is stuff that you can go look up and do some confirmation for yourself, and I encourage people to do that. It's much more important to lay your eyes on that and actually take in the information I'm talking about rather than just blindly believing or disbelieving me. Go research it for yourself. In 2012, when Occupy Wall Street was happening, the Tea Party was coming into power, a lot of people were kind of coming forward, but one major thing was happening was the questioning of Wall Street, the questioning of government and the use of resources. And then all of a sudden we start getting pushed into all these arguments and fights over things that nobody was fighting over. Nobody cared whether you were going to or not going to transition prior to that, whether or not you were going, what your sexuality was or who you were interested in, who you weren't interested in, or your belief system so much. They saw that there was a uniformity of everybody believing that the government was going the wrong direction and that Wall Street was manipulating things, and on a corporate level we had real problems in America, and arguments started to get introduced that nobody was fighting over. And if you really do your research, you discover it was being pushed on the internet in particular, but also in mainstream media. No, these are problems and you should all be fighting over it. And nobody was even talking about it prior to that. Now, if you're saying, or are you saying that people's rights in those areas don't matter? As I said, you should live in a free country where you have the freedom to choose those things. Absolutely. But more importantly, if we're all living under such a corrupt government and society that none of us can afford to live a meaningful, stable life, then what difference does the rest make if none of us can afford to even live in that society? Just a good question to ask, and something we should all be considering every day we wake up. What real change can actually happen? I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It all helps the algorithm, which I'm extremely appreciative of. And I look forward to talking to you all again soon.